Hello, every gaming buddy! Well, this is a video you might not be used to. It's a gaming review video. So my co-host Sean the Gone One and I both want to show you a few of them that we found for the iPhone and for macOS. And these games are just to pass the time.
Yep, both of these games are available on the Mac, and one of them, Towers of Everland, is even available on your iPhone, Apple TV, macOS, whichever Apple device you might have lying around past the year 2014.
And that's the one that you're reviewing, and where'd you find it?
I found it on the Apple Arcade, which if you go into the App Store on any Apple device, it's basically front and center.
And I didn't even know about Apple Arcade until you reviewed this game. But I found mine on Steam, and it's called Poly Bridge 2. So, and that's for both the macOS and for Microsoft Windows. And then I'm playing the macOS version. Doesn't Poly Bridge 2, doesn't that sound like a denture cleaner?
It does. It almost sounds like Polydent, which is what I assume my grandfather uses to clean his dentures.
Yep, probably.
So if you all watching this video want to break from the AAA games that are filled with bugs and glitches and all sorts of gook, we're going to review both of these smaller releases and see if it's even worth your time, if it's worth your money, or if you should seek to cure your unquenchable boredom elsewhere. Here we go.
The game I decided to try is called Poly Bridge 2, and this game is essentially a bridge building simulator, but it's also a sandbox type of game. This one's fueled by the success of the first Poly Bridge, and I wanted to try this mainly because I like adding variety to my game library, but also I like physics simulators. So this has a custom physics engine that's designed for bridge simulation. It's by an indie studio called Dry Cactus Games, and they're based in New Zealand. And I think the Poly Bridge games are the only two they've produced so far. And that's pretty impressive considering that both of their games have been very well received by critics and by gamers. And my first impressions of the game were fairly positive, even though there's quite a learning curve in the early levels of the game. Now, the levels start simple, like this very first level, and this is just a simple wooden bridge, and you can see in the lower left that I've got a few materials to choose from, and it's the same general concept for every level or any challenge. And there's even tutorials that show you how bridges are constructed in the real world, but then the realism only lasts for a few levels, and then they start getting pretty absurd. And I'll take you through a few more levels from the first chapter. And the first chapter is all the farther I got in the game. But anyway, this is the second level where I did fail the first time. So you build your structure and then you run the simulation to see if your bridge holds. And then if it collapses, well, it's no biggie. It's just a sandbox simulator. So you just modify your bridge and then try again. And while the simulation's running, you can pan, zoom, and even rotate the camera because it's a 3D game, even though it doesn't look like it when you're building bridges. Okay, so now this is the third level. This required some reinforced concrete, and you can see I have that material down there. This bridge broke when I ran the simulator because the truck was too heavy, but it got past the bridge anyway, so I guess that counts. You do get a few points knocked off if the bridge breaks, but no biggie. And then in this fourth level, this is interesting, there is a spline generator. So you can draw a spline across a gorge and then you can piece together your bridge along that spline. And I think that's a cool feature because those arches are provide structural reinforcement to bridges in the real world. And it pretty much translates well into this physics engine. So you get the idea, and each level gets increasingly complex and eventually totally absurd, where you're using hydraulics and springs, and that's where the physics engine got a little questionable for me, is I started to think I was building structures just to outwit the physics engine, rather than building bridges that you'd see in the real world. And really quick, I thought I would show you a little bit of the interface too. So this worlds button is what you click on to pick your level or continue through levels. There's 4 chapters in the game, and you see how this works. You know, they get increasingly complex. Some of these get just downright silly. Like I think there's a double-decker highway. You have to jump over an airplane in one of these, and then I think there's a monster truck rally. So and then there's tutorials each time you have to deal with a new mechanic in the game. The workshop area is pretty interesting. There's all sorts of user-generated levels which you can try. There's campaigns, and I'm not sure what those are. I think those are just collections of levels, and I'm sure this database will grow over time. It's already got like 200 levels, and you can create your own. Now, I'm also going to show you the settings in just a moment. I think, in the gallery. Well, in the sandbox too. Yeah, the sandbox is essentially your way of building any level you want, and you have access to all the controls and all the materials. And then the gallery is a place where you can see user solutions, but these are actually videos. So like in this one, you can see how this user came up with kind of a silly solution. And it's a kind of goofy how some of these actually count, like a truck sliding on its butt. Come on. But anyway, and then here's kind of what I'm talking about with the learning curve. So there's tons of controls, and they take a while to understand. Like I had to keep referring to this constantly for a while, and then I finally pulled it together. Yeah, a couple graphics options. My favorite feature in the controls is this. It's the Twitch extension. So apparently, if you install your Twitch extension and get the webhook plugged in here, then your audience on Twitch can help you build the bridge, because there's the interface right there on the screen in Twitch. That's pretty neat. So all things considered, I give Polybridge 2 a definite thumbs up, but I don't think it was worth the $15 I paid. It feels more like a $10 game to me, well, relative to the pricing of other games in 2020. But if it does drop to $10 or less, then I'd say definitely grab it and have fun with it, especially that creative or sandbox mode.
One thing I would like to talk about before I decide to tear this video apart is the settings. And this is really cool because when you look at the settings, you're soon going to realize that this actually is on par with the settings for a PC game. You don't usually see things such as this on mobile games or even console games. You have things like render scale, which we'll see here in a minute, brightness, which is in pretty much everything, but render scale, you can change the FPS to 60. You can add detail by having it off, normal, or even high, and that just adds a whole other aspect to the game. You have all this other stuff that I don't really know how to talk about, like bloom, color depth, shadows, ambient occlusion, motion blur, anti-aliasing, things that you don't typically get when talking about a mobile game. Like any RPG, you get to pick your character. You can choose between a stone golem, a city guard, a mage, or a rogue. Now, you cannot customize any of these characters, which is very unfortunate because that is one of my favorite things when playing an RPG, is customizing your character. Regardless, when you do pick your character, it gives you a little blurb about who the character is. Again, you cannot customize them. You just kind of have to stick with the preset that it gives you, and that, is very unfortunate because I do love customizing my characters when playing an RPG, and it's just not there. It's just not there. Now, that said, you get into this little story, which I'm not going to go into, mostly because I couldn't be bothered to pay attention, and I'm actually going to start talking about how truly awful this game actually is, so just bear with me for a little bit. Let's actually start off with the combat. The combat is awful. It's horrible. It's boring. It's redundant. Every enemy is a one-hit or a two-hit, as you can see here. And if you're playing as a mage, it's literally overpowered. Like, you can't die if you're playing as a mage. I also played as a rogue in a playthrough, and it's still pretty much the same thing. It's just the same redundant combat system over and over and over again, and every enemy is mind-numbingly easy. It's awful. I just don't understand. Like, I literally just don't even want to fight enemies. I try and avoid them whenever I possibly can. Another thing is, you might be thinking that I'm reusing the same footage over and over again, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. Just the entire dungeon looks exactly the same. It's actually worse than Oblivion's dungeon system in the Elder Scrolls 4. Yeah! In both playthroughs, as the mage and as the rogue, I have completed 2 towers, and both of them are legitimately just the same thing with the same enemies and the same boring layout where you have to traverse through a little field and then go through the tower. It couldn't be more boring if it tried. And then at the end, you come on this stupid roof part of the tower and have to go into this stupid boat, and then all of a sudden, you're in this little village thing, and then you have to go do another tower, and it's the exact same tower. While I'm ripping this game apart, I might as well talk about the awful move mechanics. They're based off of a grid system, and the thing with it is, it would be okay. This game would actually be a lot better if it weren't for the moving mechanics. They are so bad. You can't look around and move forward at the same time. You either have to look or you have to move. You can't do both at the same time like a normal video game. It's got to be both of them. And I can't. It makes getting around so much more difficult and annoying. If you play this game, you'll see what I mean. It's really bad. Or am I crazy? I don't think I'm crazy. I think it's genuinely just really bad. So suppose I had to give a review, a verdict, if you will, on whether or not you should attempt this game. Well, it is free, so honestly, why not? I think if you really want to, go ahead and do it. Totally up to you. Form your own opinion. However, in my opinion, this game is awful and should be made illegal. That's how bad and boring and redundant it is. If you want, I mean, yeah, it's a free RPG on your phone that you can play, but it doesn't really seem to have much of a storyline to it. The movement, the combat, the level design is really bad. You can barely customize your characters. You can, like, choose what they wear, but you never get to see what they wear. So honestly, if you're looking to play a new video game to cure your boredom, I feel like you're going to become more bored playing this video game than playing literally any other game on the planet. So therefore, my verdict is, don't waste your time with this game. There are better games on the Apple Arcade, and just play those, because they're probably better. No, not probably. They're most certainly better. Regardless, if you all enjoyed this video, then please go ahead and like the video, share the video, comment on the video, and subscribe. You can also find all of Culvey's stuff in the description, social media, Discord, tips, whatever you want, it's there. Stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching.